Hi boys and girls, it's Miss Rossi. Today we're going to create an observational drawing of a shoe. What you'll be needing today is a white piece of paper. There's one labeled shoe in your art folder. We're going to need a pencil, an eraser, and we're going to need a shoe that we would like to draw. So you can pick your favorite shoe or any other shoe you have lying around. I'm going to take my label off because I don't need that anymore. And today we're creating an observation drawing. So that means we are drawing based on observation, based on looking at something. So we're going to place our shoe in front of us so that you can see it while you're drawing it. We want to draw what our shoe looks like as we're looking at it, not what we think our shoe looks like. So it's important for you to have your shoe in front of you and positioned in a way that you'd like to draw it. I'm going to keep mine sideways like this so you guys can actually see the side of my shoe that I am drawing, but it's probably easiest for you to just place it in front of you so it's standing up. Drawing from observation is an important skill for us to practice because it's going to help us draw more realistically by looking at different objects and shapes and lines and how those create things that we see in everyday life. So as you're looking at your shoe, you're going to look for different lines, shapes, and patterns that you can translate onto your paper using those same lines, shapes, and different kinds of textures to create a drawing of your shoe that is realistic. Today we're just going to sketch out our shoe and we will be able to finish it next week. I am holding my paper horizontal today. That means it is longest going left to right, and I'm drawing this front side of my shoe that you can see on the screen. Again, it might be easiest for you to place your shoe so it is standing up normal. Just for the sake of this video, I'm going to place it like this so you guys can actually see the shapes that I'm drawing. Now with our pencil, we're going to draw our shoe in the center of our paper. So we want to look at what kind of shape makes up our shoe. So what shape can we use to create our overall shape of our shoe? So looking at mine, I think I'm seeing more of like a big oval on the bottom, and I'm seeing more of like a rectangular shape here at the top. So in the center of my paper, I'm just going to start by sketching out those shapes that I'm seeing. So I'm seeing a big oval. We want to draw kind of light so that we can erase because we're going to change, overlap, and draw over these shapes. And then I'm seeing that rectangular part that is coming up. Now, whatever kind of shoe you're drawing is going to be a different shape than the one that I am making, so yours does not have to look like mine. Now I can start to play around with these lines and shapes to make it look a little bit more like the shoe that I have in front of me. So if I'm looking at this shoe, it actually curves in around the back. So coming up from this point, I can have it curving in and then back out. And then it's going to curve down a little bit along the top. So I can curve it down. So now my rectangle that I started with is starting to transform into this new shape. And instead of going straight down here, it's going to come out as a diagonal until it meets the rest of my oval shape. So now I can try and bring this down and out to meet my oval shape. Now that I'm sketching in new sections and I'm changing the way that my shapes look, I can grab my eraser and just start to erase those lines. Now those lines are just there to guide us as we are drawing the first major outline portion of our shoe, but we're not going to need them there the entire time. Now I can look more at the front of my shoe and see how I want to draw it. I think that line looks good for that top piece, and then it's going to come out a little bit more flat and then jump back, curving back up towards the end. Now I can look at the bottom shape, and that line is going to slope down, curve up, and then back down. So look for those different kinds of lines you see that make up that overall border or that edge of your shoe shape, and what kind of lines you know how to draw to recreate it on your paper. So I'm just going to erase the lines that I don't need anymore. And now sketching and drawing from observation is all about drawing what you see and changing and erasing until it looks the way that you would like it to look. Now that I have that outline, that border drawn of the overall shape, I'm going to look and try and see if my proportions are right. Now the proportions are the sections of our shoe that make it up and the sizes of each section and how they relate to one another. So looking at my shoe, I can see that this line is curving over almost to the halfway point. If I were to split my shoe in half, I would probably create a line there that would split it in half. And this top edge is going close to that halfway point, but it's not really reaching there. So now I can check on my actual drawing, and that looks pretty good. Again, that top line's going close, but it's not touching that halfway point of my shoe. Now that I got that border line, that overall shape of my shoe done, I can go in and now add some of the details on my shoe. So the first thing I notice about my shoe is this big white bottom half. So I can actually go in and start to draw that in. Now again, we want to think about the size of this in comparison to the rest of the shoe. So this is fairly small, right? You would need maybe 4 of this size section to fill in the rest or that height of the shoe. So I want to make sure that I'm not drawing it too big. I'm kind of keeping it smaller than the other portions. And now I'm looking at that line and seeing how that line curves, and it kind of replicates and it follows that bottom edge that we drew for our shoe. Now again, your shoe is different, so you want to look at the different kind of shapes that are on your shoe and how the different lines and sections create it. So I have this curved line creating the bottom half, which I am looking at now. And now if I look at this top portion, I'm going to see that this line actually curves up and over that top edge. So I'm going to follow that line and bring it up to the top. The hardest thing about drawing realistically is that you start to want to draw what you think something looks like instead of what it actually looks like. And that's when it starts to look a little off. You want to try and draw exactly what you see instead of drawing what you think something is going to look like. So this line is actually going to come in like that a little bit more. And you always want to be ready to erase and change the way that something looks, because it's not going to be perfect the first time you do it. And if one section is giving you a lot of trouble, you can stop and go work on a different area to help clear your head before you go back to a part that might need some extra work. Now I can add some of those details in that bottom band. So I have this little rectangular portion that is sticking out from the heel. So I can draw that in there. And then I have that black line that is coming down along the bottom, and it's going to stop at this area where we see that textured front end of the shoe is coming out. So I can actually draw a line where I think this textured section is going to end. I think it's going to end like right there. And then I can bring that black line that I was making all the way over so it connects. And now even if there are colored details on your shoe, like I have this black line, I'm going to leave it just in pencil for now because we're going to add color and things next time. Now that I finished that section, I can move on, and there's this like diamond pattern with some little lines going all the way through. So I can add that section to show the texture, because here it's nice and smooth, but if you look closely on this section, you're going to see it's a lot more rougher and bumpy. So I'm just going to put some lines and some little X's all the way across to show the texture there. Now I'm going to move up to the top half of my shoe, and now looking at it, again, we can keep changing and erasing and fixing different areas. So I see here, instead of it just curving in and out, it's going to go down and pop out with more of a harder edge. So if you really want to get into those details, you can look for all those little wrinkles and different little sections, because all of those little details are going to help make your picture look more realistic. And then I'm noticing this is a little bit more flat on the top than I originally drew it. So I can just flatten that out, and it does bump up where the fabric is. So again, it's all about erasing and changing until what you're drawing looks the way that you want. Now I can start to draw this fabric, and I can see the edge of my fabric is curving down past this hard edge where I drew where the texture ends. So I can just bring this and curve it down to there. And then I can start to add the details and designs that I see on the top half of my shoe, since I finished the ones that I saw on the bottom. So I have the big label, I have that white stitching, and I have the circles where my laces are going to go along with my laces. I'm going to start with that big label. Now next to the label, I see some stitching along the back. So I am just going to draw a line that follows the same shape as the back edge of my shoe, and then I'm going to put the label next to it. So our label is just a big circle, and I can see that circle's coming down past where I have that little indent. So when I'm drawing it on my shoe, I'm going to make sure it comes down past that point too. Now drawing circles are tricky, so I like to draw a bunch of lines to make my circles and then erase it until I see the lines that make it up in the best way. So I'm erasing all these little extra lines until I have that more circular shape. Now I'm just going to do those little stitching details. So to make the stitching going along my shoe, I can just do a dashed line all the way that follows that same shape that we already drew. And since it is stitched twice, I'm going to make that 2 dashed lines following along the edge there. And then we're going to have that other line that's coming down and around. So this one's going to go around the little circles we're going to draw where the laces go, and it's just kind of curving down, following that same shape but leaving space this time. And here I see it's going to go towards the front like a point. And that's another one where again I'm going to go in and do that dashed line twice next to each other parallel so that I can show both of those stitched sections. And there is kind of like some extra stitching over here, so I'm just going to do a couple more dashed lines down at the bottom. Now the next thing I'm going to do is add those circles in where my laces are. So I'm just going to draw some small circles in here. I see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 circles, but now my circles down here don't look like full circles. This one, and this one look like big, complete circles. So for those, I can just draw a regular full circle. But now again, we want to draw what it looks like instead of what we think it looks like, so that it's going to come out more realistic. So I'm going to look at this shape here, and I see that that's more of like a half circle, almost like a moon shape in all of those, because you can't see the full circle the way that our shoe is positioned. So I can draw in those full circles first, and then down here, the way that our shoe looks, it's not going to be a full, perfect looking circle. So I'm just going to draw like a C shape or like a U shape down there for those sections. And I will complete that shape once I start to draw the laces, because I think the laces are going to help those look a little bit better. Don't forget to add any kinds of designs that you have on your shoe. My shoe is just plain black, but maybe yours is a print or a design or a pattern, so you can draw that along the inside. I'm going to write in the words that are on my label, and there's a big star at the center. And I have these 2 little circles down towards the bottom that I can add as well. And now that is my shoe mostly finished. The only thing I need to add now is the laces and to fix up these holes that I have at the top. So I'm going to draw those center portions of our holes. And now in this third one is where I see my lace is starting to come out. So inside that circle, I'm just doing a C shape, because the other section of that shape is going to be the lace, which is coming out and going over the edge of my shoe. So it's coming out and going over. And the same thing is going to happen in this one, where it's coming out and going over. And in this one, so I'm going to do a big C shape where the lace is coming out and going over. Now I can connect the rest of that original circle that I drew to complete that shape. And now again, instead of drawing what we think it looks like, we want to draw what it actually looks like. So here we know in our head that that lace is going over and connecting in another hole, but we can't see that from the way that we're looking at it. So it's just going to end as like a curved shape off in the distance. So it came up over the side of my shoe, and then it ended just as a closed shape on the other side. Now I'm just erasing that section of the edge of my shoe that I could still see, and I can draw in the rest of my lace. So I have the big bow and that hanging portion of my shoelace. So here I can draw the knot at the top, and the piece of my lace is actually coming down towards the front. And again, this isn't going to be see-through, so we're actually going to erase everything inside that shoelace that we can still see. And then I just have that big bow section that is actually coming across and hanging down onto the other side. And that is my sneaker all finished. I'm just going to go in and erase any extra lines that I see that I don't need anymore. Now your picture is going to look different than mine because you're probably drawing a different kind of shoe. And you want to draw what you are seeing, so what yours actually looks like as it's sitting in front of you. This is just to help you get an idea of how to translate the shapes, lines, and textures you're seeing in front of you onto a piece of paper. So you always want to just break it down into shapes and lines that you know. So things like those curvy lines or that rectangle and that oval that we first started with, and just build off of those by adding more shapes and lines on top to create details. I know this can get tricky, so spend a little bit of time trying to draw your shoe as best as you can. It does not have to be perfect. Try and get it as close to looking like your shoe as possible. Now today we are only working on drawing our shoe in pencil. Next week we're going to add a background and we're going to color in our shoe and our background design. So try and spend a lot of time today making sure that your shoe looks the way that you're happy with. Since we're working on this again next week, you do not have to send me a photo or video of your project. Just save it in your art folder until then when we get to finish it. Take some time working on your shoe, making it the best that it can be. Try your best, have fun, and get creative. I'll see you soon. Bye!